Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to do a segment called Welcome to the Underground. So first I want to thank all my viewers. Like the last two big Maliss videos that I done got very well received. Like they became the two biggest watched videos on my channel. And I kind of want to reward everybody who has stuck around just watching my Maliss stuff and showcase you stuff that probably you don't know or probably is very overlooked by a lot of Maliss players. Like, I am not a savant when it comes to this deck. However, I played numerous hours of this deck. I practiced a lot of lines. I've learned a lot of games, and I'm just a very big fan of this deck. And even though my runs with this deck has not been very consistent, my theory and my deck building prowess with Maliss has been to a level that is very respected. So what I'm going to do in this video is teach you a lot of things that involve this deck. I'm gonna talk about potential engines that people overlook, things that people overlooked when it comes to technical play, stuff that you should be playing in your deck or you should not be playing in your deck, answering the long debate that people have, because there are some topics that are like debatable when it comes to Maliss. Yeah, without further ado, let's begin. The first thing I'm gonna talk about is these 5 cards that are right here. So Gold Sarcophagus, Allure of Darkness, Terraforming, and these 2 Bestials. I wholeheartedly believe that these 5 cards should be in your Maliss deck. Doesn't matter what variant you're playing, whether it's Sky Striker, whether it's Heavy Bestials, whether or not it's like with the other engines that I've shown. I wholeheartedly believe these 5 cards should be in your deck. Gold Sarcophagus is just a starter. Allure of Darkness is a starter / extender depending on your hand. It's not only a consistency card, but it's also an engine pusher. So whether or you're going first or second, this card is really good. It gets you to your side cards a lot easier. It gets you to your non-engine a lot easier as well. It turns your potential normal summons into potential special summons that your opponent like has to play around. Like overall, just very strong card. There's a reason this card got limited in the OCG. Terraforming. A lot of people are not a fan of this because Underground is the weakest starter in the deck. However, Maliss is not known to be very consistent unless you're playing like other engines to bridge into Maliss. So you should be playing Terraforming in your deck, as well as maxing out on all copies of Underground. So for Bestials, I think Magnamut and Druid's specifically, these 2 should be in your deck. Like Magnamut just being able to add another Bestial is just really good. Druid's being an out to Ryziel Detonator, as well as an out to just other monsters that could be problematic, as well as functioning as an extender itself. It's just really strong. Like this card got limited in the OCG for a reason. So as long as this card is at 3, you should be playing this card in your deck, even at 1 copy, at least. So yeah, now that I talked about those 5 cards, let's talk about these 7. Well, I'm going to put these cards in a back burner, but let me start with the Heavy Bestials first. As of late, in the past couple regionals in the TCG, Heavy Bestials have been played in a lot of Maliss lists that have been topping regionals. In the OCG, this is the main way Maliss is being played at the moment as well. And I think this is not incorrect. I think Lubellion as well as other Bestials are just very strong extenders. They help push you through like really good hand traps, including ones like Nibiru. Whether or not you're playing Lubellion, Chaos Space is another engine to consider. The one debate that you should be making when it comes to Lobelion and Chaos Space is Dimension Shifter. And the other debate is Dominus Impulse. These are two really strong non-engine cards that have been played in Maliss decks. Whether you see these cards in the main or in the side deck, like these cards are now staple in Maliss, at least for the time being. And whichever engine that you play that conflicts with these cards are debatable whether or not they should be in your main deck. That's why in all of my Maliss deck profiles that I've done in this channel, you have not seen me talk about or play or test Striker Mobilize Engage. The same goes with Silent Mining. I think these two cards are not bad cards. I just think if you're playing Dominance Impulse and you're playing Dimension Shifter, these two cards should not be in your deck. Like Dimension Shifter is just a really huge conflict with these cards, and like this card is going to become very like strong in the TCG because of Mitsurugi, Crystron, and the continuation of Fiendsmith. So yeah, as long as this card is in your deck, you should be you should make a consensus whether or not to play these engine cards. I've seen people play Engage alongside Shifter, and that just doesn't feel right to me. That's not to say that they're not bad players, or they're saying that like their like logic by playing those engines are correct or incorrect. It's just you want the least amount of cards to conflict in this deck as possible, especially with how not naturally consistent Maliss is as a deck. Dangers is something I've been vouching for in my channel. This engine is just really good for me right now. The thing about Dangers and the reason I like it so much, and the same thing goes for Adding Nestor, is these three cards right here, they're not a conflict with the Dangers. You can use your Dangers to like play through Lancia. You can use your Dangers even when you activate Dominance Impulse, and you can use your Dangers even when you resolve Dimension Shifter. Like, these three cards are the final consensus that you should be making in your deck, whether or not you're playing non-engine cards in your Maliss deck. Let's talk about the next card. The next card I want to talk about is Dotscaper. So there are pros and cons to this card. The first, the pro that you have to take with this card is that it works under both Lancia and Shifter. Like, if you resolve Dimension Shifter, this card is just a good extender in your deck. And if you get Artifact Lancia, this card also functions as an extender. The problem with Dotscaper is like conflict with Dominance Impulse. If Dotscaper was not an Earth attribute monster, I'd say this card also would have been a staple in Maliss. But the problem is Dominance Impulse just becomes a heavy conflict with this card, especially if you draw the Dotscaper. Dotscaper is not a really good card to draw, like in any potential means. So yeah, keep that in mind when you're building your deck with Dominance Impulse. I'd say until Alliance Insight, you're going to see this card in Maliss decks, but post Alliance Insight, it could potentially be replaced with the Marsh Hare. So now that I talked about all of this, let me talk about Lancia for a second, because there's one PSA that I want to give that I think a lot of people overlook. If you're playing Maliss yourself, you should be very careful when you're playing Artifact Lancia, because I've seen games where Maliss players who go first just activate Lancia on their opponent after they made their own board, and they just lose the game because their opponent had potential board breakers and non-engine cards to navigate through Lancia and just punish them for it. Like, if you activate Artifact Lancia, there's a lot of cards that are just not going to work anymore if you Lancia your opponent. Like, and just showcasing you all the cards right here. Like, all these cards that I'm showcasing right now, all these cards don't work if you Lancia. If you Lancia, all these cards are shut down. So you cannot negate with Acrobatic Nister because Acrobatic Nister banishes whatever you negate. Same thing goes for Lingeribo. You cannot negate like imperms and stuff like that. You cannot White Binder to like potentially create more interruptions. You cannot activate Hearts of Cryptor in order to interrupt your opponent. You cannot Reborn with Abawaku. You cannot banish with SP Little Knight. And like another card that that is just not functionable under Lancia is MTP07. MTP07 also doesn't become an interruption anymore. So please keep that in mind when you're playing Lancia. Like I just seen people lose games because they just Lancia and then their end board is just not workable. And then they just get blown out with stuff like Lightning Storm, for example. So now that I talked about that, I'm gonna show you a gameplay scenario. So, you see how I have 1300 life points right here? Let's say my opponent has an Access Code Talker and they have a Nibiru, the Primal Being. I'm going to ask this question. Can your opponent OTK you this turn? The Access Code Talker already used this effect. It no longer can pop any cards. And they're just going to go straight to the battle phase. Can they OTK you in this scenario with you having 1300 life points left? I'll give you 5 seconds to answer that. 3, 2, 1. The answer is no. They cannot OTK you this turn. And I'll show you why. There are a lot of things to take note of here. The first thing to take note is Maliss in Underground. While you control a Maliss Link monster, your opponent can only target Maliss Link monsters for attacks. So that Marsh Hare and that White Rabbit, they're both safe. Like, you don't have to worry about those cards getting attacked with Maliss in Underground. But there's more to take into note. Let's say, for example, Nibiru attacks, and the Nibiru goes after the White Binder. What happens here? You have 3 seconds. 2, 1. The Nibiru dies, and your opponent takes 1700 damage. Why does that happen? Because of Red Ransom. Red Ransom says, well, this card points to a monster. The original attack and defense of all the effect monsters your opponent controls are swish. I've seen Maliss players make the mistake thinking that they're going to get OTK'd and they just waste their NTP07s, they waste their Heart of Cryptors, they waste like other interruptions just to get rid of your opponent's board when they were still safe and your opponent had no way to OTK them. I've also seen games where the opponent just loses because they attack into the wrong monster or with the wrong monster, and they just don't know about this passive effect. So let's say your opponent made that mistake and the Nibiru is dead. Okay, they'll go Access Code Talker and they'll attack after the Red Ramson. Take note, this Access Code Talker has 5300 attack because it gained the attack of a Link 3 monster. What happens in this scenario? 3, 2, 1. The Ramson dies, but you take no damage. The reason because of that is because of White Rabbit. White Rabbit reads, you take no damage from battles involving Maliss Link monsters that point to this card. I've also missed this effect, and I've seen people also miss this effect. I've seen people just OTK illegally just because they don't notice that the White Rabbit is protecting them from getting OTK'd. So yeah, this is another very big deal, and it's something that I know people overlook when it comes to this deck. So yeah, keep that in mind whether or not you are the Maliss player. Okay, so now that I showed you those rulings, can we play with our engine the same way, or there are other lines that follow suit to the lines that I showcased you last time? So when I did the last Maliss video, I showed you a few lines involving Dormouse, but there are some lines that I've missed, and there are some key details that I also missed that I know that other people have not noticed. So let's begin. We're going to Dormouse. Dormouse is going to summon the Right Rabbit. Right Rabbit is going to settle the 11. This is all standard procedure. We're going to switch it up a little bit. Instead of doing Lizardos, we're just going to summon the cat first. We're going to link the rabbit into decoder. We're going to link all of these. I'm just switching it up a little bit. You don't have to make this line. I think the Lizardos line is just a lot better. But this is just to show you other avenues that you have with this deck. So, as you can see here, I opt to banish the Marsh Hare and not the Dotscaper. I just feel like Marsh Hare is just way more important right now. You summon the Marsh Hare banishes the cat gets summoned, and we're just going to link these into White Binder. We're going to White Binder banish the Dormouse. We're going to set the 06. We're going to activate Underground. Underground is going to banish the mirror. So I showcased you combos when you add the mirror with Red Ramson, but I often overlooked that you can banish any card with Maliss and Underground. So with Maliss and Underground, you can banish the mirror, and the mirror can just banish the 11 and just add you another trap card. This is a big deal because prior to this interaction, White Binder was a choke point for your opponent. If your opponent had like a Baylor and Imperm or like any card like that, White Binder would have been a card you save your interruption because it cuts off access to GWC06. And cutting off access to this card is very, very important when it comes to interacting with Maliss. So now with banishing the mirror, that is no longer an issue. You can even get Nibiru at this point and it just won't matter anymore. Because you can just Underground, banish the mirror, and mirror just grabs you 06, and 06 gives you interruptions with Binder and Ramson next turn. Let's keep going. So we're going to link these into Firewall. We're going to 06, the Binder, summon back the Ramson. Binder gets summoned. And I'm going to talk about this point right here. This is another Nibiru choke point because we're using the 06. So the 06 is back in our graveyard. And remember what I said about cutting access to 06? Cutting access to 06 is very, very important when it comes to Maliss. It just cuts down level of extension or interaction that you have on your opponent's turn. So this is a very good Nibiru choke point. But now, post-Alliance Insight, this is no longer an issue as well. And I'm going to demonstrate it with another example. We're just gonna keep going. We're going to use Firewall Dragon. We're going to add the Marsh and the Chessy Cat. We're going to link these two away into Griffin. Griffin is going to dump the Chessy Cat. We're going to set 06. We're going to draw another card. We're going to link these two for the Lightless Shadow. Lightless Shadow is going to banish itself. We're going to dump the Marsh. We're going to summon the Griffin. We're going to set the 07. And we're past turn. So let's pretend it's your opponent's turn and you have the 06, right? Let's say, hypothetically, your opponent stops the GWC06. Like, they have Ghost Bell, Dominance Imperm, Typeframe Epsilon. It's like 3 examples of cards that can just negate the WC06. So this card is gone from our interaction. Okay. Since they cut off our access to 06, we're going to try to use About a Coup to bring back the White Binder. Okay, let's say your opponent imprims and they negate the About a Coup. So what happens next? Now, post-Alliance Insight, this card becomes way more important now than it has ever been. Because now 07 can add you the Marsh Hare. And the Marsh Hare can, as a quick effect, banish the White Binder to summon herself. And that brings back the White Binder, and the White Binder brings back the Ramson. So now you have a new layer of interruptions or interaction against your opponent. So yeah, and you get another draw because of Binder. So yeah, that's one explanation I kind of wanted to give, because yeah, this card just changes the dynamic of the deck significantly. And the more I keep playing and testing with Maliss, the more I just realize this. Okay, so I already showcased you a combo with Achichi Administer. What happens if I activate Dominance Impulse and Dimension Shifter? This is one thing I like about Achichi Administer. Since this is a fire attribute monster, it does not conflict with Dominance Impulse. And what we're doing with Achichi Administer does not conflict with Dimension Shifter as well. So we're going to summon Achichi, it's going to add us the backup. We're going to link that away for Lingerivo. We're going to summon the backup. Backup is going to grab us the Dormouse. And since we're on the Shifter, we're going to banish the Dormouse, discarding it. We're going to summon the Dormouse. Dormouse is going to banish the Rabbit. Rabbit is going to set. We're going to set 07. And we're going to link all these into Heart of Cryptor. So now you have the interaction of Cryptor and 07. If you don't know what this means 2 free banishes against 2 of your opponent's cards. And if they try to get rid of this Heart of Cryptor just comes back. Because she will get banished because of Dimension Shifter. Adding to that, with 07, you can just add follow-up. You can just add like any of these. And you're just safe for next turn, while also stopping your opponent. Okay, so what happens if we get Lancia? This is another combo with that Ignister that just plays around Lancia, and another reason why this card should be considered in your Maliss deck. So we're going to summon Achichi. Achichi is going to grab off the backup. We're going to link this away into Lingerivo. Same thing as last time. We're going to backup. Backup is going to grab us the Dormouse. We're going to discard the Dormouse. And now, this is when we would make the Lizard Dose. But since we're on the Lancia, we cannot do that anymore. We're just going to make Splash Mage. These are both Cybers monsters. So, yeah, it just works very well. And take note, Splash Mage is a Water type monster. So, this entire engine just works well even under Dominance Impulse. So we're just going to summon the Dormouse. We're going to link these two away into Red Ramson. And now Red Ramson can add us Maliss in the Mirror. And Maliss in the Mirror is important here because now under Lancia, we have 2 potential interruptions. So we're just going to set the Mirror. We're going to just let the Lancia go through. And now we're going to use the Mirror as an interruption. This is just showcasing you like one potential interruption. We're just going to summon the Rabbit. Rabbit just becomes like another interaction. And now we can 07 banish the Rabbit and just grab the Marsh Hare. And you can just banish like the Marsh Hare, and Marsh Hare can just banish the Mirror, and the Mirror can add us 06 or a TB11. Another thing that we can do is we can banish the Dormouse, and then the Dormouse just gets summoned. So there's a lot of flexibility of what you can do with the Marsh Hare. Okay, so last replay. So I had a lot of people, well, not a lot, but I had a good number of people asking me how many ratios of these cards you should be playing in your deck. I'd say it really doesn't matter how many. It really matters if you want your engine to be consistent or not. Because take note, Signet Mining and I Meet You, and there's another new one that comes in Alliance Insight, the Thais. They can all search for Achichi and Inister. So whether or not you're playing these cards would tell you how many copies of Achichi you want to play in your deck. That being said, we're going to showcase you a combo on the Lancia. So what happens if you already draw the backup? So in the last Maliss video, there is one other card that I did not show. And I have to give credit where credit is due. There's a guy named Adam Gilbert. He is in the Maliss Duelist Facebook group. And he is the one who pointed out a combo very similar to this one. The combo he was showcasing involved any Maliss monster, not Achichi. But we're using Achichi in this example because Achichi can just access you to your Maliss engine anyway. So the card that we're going to add is Wizard at Ignister. So Wizard at Ignister is if you control a Cybers monster, special summon from the Esper deck, you can target one Cybers monster in your graveyard, special summon both this card from your hand and that monster in defense position. It's not written here in the text that it got printed, but this card does Cybers lock you if you do this. So you're locked into Cybers for the rest of the turn. You can also banish this card from your field or graveyard, then target one monster your opponent controls and switch back. This effect doesn't mean anything. You're just mainly here having it for the next effect. So we're going to link away into Lingeribo. We're going to special the backup. Backup is going to add us the White Rabbit. We're going to dump the White Rabbit. We're going to link these two away into... We skipped a step. It should be Splash Mage and then Red Ramson, but pretend the Splash Mage was used in the combo. We already saw Splash Mage being utilized like in this previous combo, so just pretend that it's there. And with the Red Ramson, we're going to add Malice in the Mirror, same as last time. And now we're going to special the Wizard and Ignister. The Wizard is going to special summon the White Rabbit. And White Rabbit is not negated this time, so White Rabbit can set. So we're going to set the 07. And now we're going to link all of these into the Echo Tucker at Ignister. Echo Tucker at Ignister is going to break back the Red Ramson. And we're going to set the mirror. So this is a very strong interaction even under Lancia. Like, we're talking about an Omni-Negate. We're talking about like a potential return, like with Malice in the Mirror. We also have the 07 that can also serve as an interruption on your opponent's turn. Like, let's just show you like all the potential interactions. And take note, the 07 can add you the Marsh Hare once you're like, when you're adding. So, and you can just do Malice in the Mirror for Ramson. Ramson banish the Dormouse, just to show you an example. You can also just summon the Marsh Hare. Let's say you needed to use the Echo Tucker at Ignister, like to stop your opponent, and the Red Ramson is your graveyard. Is the same deal. You can just summon the Marsh Hare, banish the Ramson. Ramson summons the Dormouse. Is the same interaction after that. We're going to banish the Rabbit in this instance. Rabbit is going to set us 06. And we just have a lot of follow-up. Like 2 potential interruptions for your opponent's turn. And this is not even counting non-engine. So if you have stuff like Dominus Impulse, for example, to just stop your opponent, like this just becomes very, very powerful. So yeah, this is all I kind of wanted to showcase you. This is probably going to be one of other segments that it comes with Maliss, because I feel like Maliss just has so many lines, so many like ways of interacting with your opponent, so many potential M boards. Like not even a spreadsheet can cover everything that you just want to discover with this deck. But yeah, I hope you found this informative to your liking, understanding. And yeah, keep practicing and keep dueling.